Pleased to say that Serge Thieulle, the APAC Vice President of Linklogis, is joining us now from Hong Kong. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll talk more about what you're hoping to do here in Singapore a little bit later on in the conversation. But given the global supply chain crunch that we're seeing, how is supply chain finance demand holding up?
Listen, the demand has increased steadily and even more so now. There is a number of products that are getting more mature now in reverse factoring. What Linklogis is trying to bring now is trying to bring some new types of product, trying to provide financing before invoices is being raised, or trying to go deeper in the chain by financing suppliers of suppliers. So it's a very interesting time for supply chain finance, and also more and more data becomes available, and more partners that we have on the financing side are ready to fund based on data and not necessarily based on balance sheet.
Okay, well, talk to us about some of the dynamics then going on. You mentioned that it is an interesting time for supply chain finance. Given what's going on throughout the entire supply chain, are people needing to finance because of delays in the supply chain? Talk to us a bit more about what you're seeing specifically when it comes to the financing side of the equation based on, of course, the bottlenecks and log jams that we are seeing across the world.
Listen, from my perspective, the COVID has impacted us more than purely this crunch that we see, and that at one point should be resolved. What we've seen, especially with COVID, is the situation where a number of suppliers had more need to get their cash early. So that created a high demand for working capital on the supplier side. And companies of all sides, it could be SMEs or larger firms. So in our field, that is something where we've been impacted. We've seen growing demand, and this is likely to stay much more than the crunch that we see that should be temporary.
How is blockchain technology then simplifying the process when it comes to logistics more broadly and also from a financing perspective?
Sure. So I'd like to go just beyond the buzzword of blockchain. I think from our perspective, blockchain is great for some of our products, and other products, I would say a cloud structure is absolutely perfect. But what we see is that when you have more and more actors on a particular trade, it's very important to have an agreed source of truth. And for this, blockchain is absolutely fantastic. I'm going to give you an example. We are working in our deep tier finance product, where we finance the supplier of the supplier, and it can go up to tier 6. So with all these parties involved, and also with funder that needs to keep the visibility, blockchain is a perfect technology for us.
All right, let's expand that conversation out then to what you're announcing and what you're doing today in Singapore. Launching in Singapore, you hope to establish yourself as a digital bank in Singapore from early 2022. Explain to us this move into Singapore after, of course, you've been operating in mainland China almost exclusively, right?
So we were created in mainland China 5 years ago. Our first step to our international journey started 2 years ago, and we naturally started in Hong Kong. Now, in this next step, we're growing in Singapore. Several reasons. First, I mean, Singapore is a fantastic place in Asia for trade and finance. But also, we also, as you said, created our ecosystem in Singapore with the creation of this digital bank. We were awarded this license by MAS last year, and you're right to say that it's going to be up and running at the beginning of 2022. We also have another joint venture, which is also extremely significant for us, which is called OLEA, and it's a joint venture with Standard Chartered Bank. And that will give us some great capabilities in terms of funding. Because when you see the new product that we create in supply chain finance, the technology is only one side of the equation. You also need great funders and funding capabilities that are ready to fund, as I said, based on data or on new types of product and all types of credit risk. And we are very excited by these two opportunities and these two new joint ventures in Singapore. And it's natural for us to have our next expansion in Singapore.
Absolutely. Serge, we have to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us and giving us those insights today. Serge Thieulle of Linklogis there.